It's time for my top 20 favorite movies of all time. Now, just as a disclaimer, this is by no stretch of the imagination the best 20 movies of all time, but merely those I love most. With that said, let's get into it with number 20. This is a Japanese animated movie that's absolutely gorgeous. It's a fantasy romance story, but the beauty is in the visuals. Oh my god, one of the most beautifully animated films I've ever seen. And the story itself is beautifully crafted. It's really unique. It has a bit of time jumping elements going on. I may have shed a few tears at the end, maybe. Enthusiast is a French classic that honestly everybody should watch. It's infinitely funny and heartwarming. The movie that catapulted Omar Sy into stardom in France and earned him countless Best Actor awards. He's ridiculously charismatic and just plays this particular role to perfection. It's a story about friendship at heart, and it's really, really well directed and scripted. What a movie. I'm a huge fan of sci-fi in general, so this shouldn't be a surprise. What really gets me though about the new Blade Runner is the incredible world building and cinematography at play, easily making you feel like you're right there with Ryan. I can't ever get over the visuals when I watch this movie, and the vibe as well. It makes it so easy to come back to time and time again. Also, in my opinion, Ryan Gosling kills it in this film. The movie of the hour, the movie that just swept the Oscars, and honestly, this might be recency bias, but I adored this movie to the point where I watched it like 3 times in cinema with different friends and family. What really makes it addicting to watch, in my opinion, is Ludwig Göransson's music and score. It's incredible throughout the whole movie. It makes you feel incredibly immersed and honestly gave me anxiety throughout the film, but like in a good way. Cillian Murphy also plays one of my favorite roles in film. He kills it. It's just so easy to feel enthralled by his performance. Also, of course, the cinematography and other performances like Robert Downey Jr. just tie it all together, and I mean, it's one of the highest rated dramas on Letterboxd for a reason. Groundhog Day, one of the classic rom-coms. We've got a bunch of remakes of the time loop trope since this movie came out, like Palm Springs and many others, but Groundhog Day is the OG. It's just a simple, funny, romantic rom-com. It's not the best directed or has the best dialogue, but it's just truly a great time. And I've watched this movie more times than I can count. Bill Murray isn't actually someone whose humor I'm a huge fan of most of the time, but in this movie, he nails it for me. Now, I'm a sucker for jazz and romance, so La La Land was bound to stick with me. The songs and music are just amazing, infinitely replayable, it's fun, it's incredibly well directed, and the use of color as well makes it all the more entertaining to watch. Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling have amazing chemistry, which isn't always a given in a lot of romance movies. Also, just a very unique story, one that has you hooked from the beginning and doesn't end the way you expect it to, the way that most romance movies do, which is points in my book, honestly. Jesus. Now you guys are kind of seeing my true colors. 3 romance movies in a row. Yep. Notting Hill is actually my favorite rom-com of all time. The wit and charisma of young Hugh Grant in a rom-com will never get old to me. Never. It's just incredible. There are a lot of common tropes in Notting Hill, but it's so fun. It doesn't really even matter. It's so easy to fall in love as well with him and Julia Roberts' relationship. Whew, this one hits home. This is an emotional roller coaster for sure. One of my favorite superhero movies, if you can really call it that, with Wolverine being one of my favorite characters of all time. This movie just hits different. It's wonderfully directed and written, and just the perfect end, in my opinion, to one of the most recognizable characters of all of media. Watching Wolverine at his oldest and weakest still breaks my heart every time, but the story and performances, especially of Hugh Jackman, are absolutely incredible in this movie. An all-time classic and a movie I first watched in English class, but I was so surprised by how entertained I could be by a black and white movie that took place entirely in the side room of a courthouse. I honestly couldn't believe how interesting it was, and it's just a testament to the incredible dialogue and performances in the movie, helping you feel every inch of tension and stake in the room. One of those movies that I never thought I'd like, to be honest, but I'm now glad I got the chance to watch, and I've watched multiple times since then. What a beautiful movie, a holiday classic, and in my books, the best Christmas film of all time. Incredibly wholesome, cute, makes you have existential thoughts by the time the credits are rolling, and also just an interesting concept I think we've all thought about at one point or another, right? Like, what would life be like if I wasn't here? It's a bit morbid, but it's really interesting to see that play out. It's a beautiful movie to watch with the family while you're enjoying some hot chocolate on Christmas Day. And the message of the movie is incredibly beautiful as well. What is there to say about the first of Peter Jackson's culture-defining trilogy? A lot of fans would probably say they prefer the second or third movie, but there's just something about the first that makes it so rewatchable for me. I always fall in love with the exposition at the beginning. Just watching Frodo in Hobbiton is such a vibe. The way they build the world up throughout the movie is amazing as well. And the introductions to legendary characters like Aragorn and Gandalf make it even more interesting. The cinematography and music are some of the best I've ever seen. My man Howard Stone went crazy with the tunes in Lord of the Rings, and there's just a soft spot in my heart for the first one of this trilogy. I'm a Disney kid, and in my opinion, the best animated movie Disney has ever made is The Lion King. And let's be honest, The Lion King is a movie that influenced a whole generation. I never knew I could relate to a story about lions as much as I do, but I do. It's such a good story, it's emotional, it's inspiring, it's funny with Timon and Pumbaa as side characters. The music by Hans Zimmer is legendary, and the songs are classic. You know, who doesn't love listening to The Circle of Life, Hakuna Matata, Can You Feel the Love Tonight? Like, everybody knows those songs, and this movie's like 20 years old. This movie's like 30 years old, which is just a testament to how good they are. I could go on and on about this movie, but yeah, this is special to me. The second highest box office movie of all time for a reason. The MCU had so many of us going to the cinema to watch their movies year after year for a decade, and Endgame culminated that incredible story in, I think, the best way possible. I grew up with Marvel and the universe they created, and this, in my opinion, is the best of the best in that story. Arguably one of the best villains of all time in Thanos, a star-studded cast of incredible superheroes, and a story filled with the highest stakes possible, literally. The years of planning to make this movie possible solidifies its place in this list without question. Like, the Russo brothers did an incredible job. And in my opinion, there's nothing comparable to what the MCU has been able to accomplish in film. The first, and spoiler not last, Miyazaki movie on this list, Princess Mononoke, contains one of my favorite animated characters of all time in San, the Wolf Princess. There's actually a video about her on my channel which you can check out. All of her layers and growth makes her incredible. From hating all humans to coming to terms with loving one, but never sacrificing her morals and values. She's a boss-ass woman in every sense. Miyazaki is at his best here, as he usually is, with the animation and the visuals, while giving us a really interesting antagonist in Lady Eboshi and protagonist in Ashitaka. And the music. It should be a given that any Joe Hisaishi music just makes a Studio Ghibli movie 10 times better. He's incredible. Whew, what a masterpiece of a movie. Definitely the most intense and least feel-good movie on this list, but one that really hits me hard when I watched it. Masterpiece performances by J.K. Simmons and Miles Teller, to the point that I literally felt uncomfortable at certain scenes in the movie. It's a story of abuse and mentorship, a story of pushing one's limit to get the best out of them in a way that no one really deserves. It's hard to not feel overwhelming sadness and pity towards Miles, but it's so captivating that you can't keep your eyes off the screen. How could I have a favorites movie list and not include Interstellar on it? One of the best, most complex, complete films of the 21st century, in my opinion. The fact that it didn't even get nominated for Best Picture is a crime, is actually a crime. Everyone talks about Matthew McConaughey's performance, and they're right. I'm honestly convinced that if you don't shed a single tear at this movie, you might be a psychopath. Just slightly. Nah, but in all seriousness, his best performance comes in this movie, in my opinion, and it's propelled by Hans Zimmer's incredible score once again. I'm glad it at least won the Oscar for Best VFX, because please look at these shots. The scale and breathtaking nature of it all never gets old. It can be confusing, yes, but I love movies that get you thinking. A movie that honestly revolutionized animation for the better with its unique and innovative animation style. I actually talk more about this in a video of mine, so if you want to go hear about it in more detail, go check it out. I was honestly torn between this and Across the Spider-Verse, but this being its own complete story and marking the first time this animation style was brought to screens, it has to be this movie. There's very little that rivals that feeling I got when watching this for the first time in cinemas. The awe and surprise at what they had done with the comic book style. The soundtrack tied it all together as well, with songs like Sunflower, Scared of the Dark, and What's Up Danger being incredible. Next is my favorite Nolan film, and in my opinion, the best superhero movie ever, Nolan's Dark Knight. I love it. The cinematography, the vibe, Heath Ledger as Joker, which everybody has talked about, the dialogue and story, it doesn't get better than this. This is my favorite Nolan movie by far. Christian Bale kills it in this movie, and throughout the whole trilogy, to be honest. He absolutely embodies Batman in a way that I've never seen since and before then, and some of the other performances across this movie as well are great. Like Aaron Eckhart as Harvey Dent, underrated performance. He does such a good job. Personally, I love superhero stories. I've grown up with them, and this, in my opinion, is the pinnacle of that subgenre. If you're a fan of my channel, you know how much I love animation. And this next one is my favorite animated movie of all time. Miyazaki's magical Howl's Moving Castle. This might be a basic pick, but I couldn't care less. There's something about the world building in Howl's Moving Castle that's so inviting. The animation is obviously beautiful, probably some of the best in all of Miyazaki's films. Joe Hisaishi creates some of the most gorgeous songs for this movie as well, like The Flower Garden or the iconic Merry-Go-Round of Life. Calcifer's hilarious, Howl is amazingly cool, and Sophie is endearing. This is more a fantasy movie, but the underlying subtle romance between Howl and Sophie is beautiful. Also, this is the one movie I would probably want to live in. Being a part of the castle and a part of the ragtag family they created, waking up to the endless fields of greenery and flowers, such a vibe. And now for my favorite movie of all time, which is... This one is as much about the movie as it is about how it makes me feel. The performances by Matt Damon and Robin Williams just strike a chord with me every single time. It's hard for me to not get emotional watching this, to be honest. There's no better trope than the stray person full of potential, being mentored and becoming a better person slowly but surely. I love that. It also contains, in my opinion, one of the best monologues in all of film. It's a movie that's inspiring as hell. It's real, it's turbulent and emotional, but with a sweet ending. Not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but perfect for me. That's why it's made its way to the top of my favorite films.